Welcome back to In His Mind. There's a couple things on my mind here, and I'm going to get through them as best I can here. I got to look at a couple verses. In short, there's a couple of things put together. I got to look up into more information as far as the previous video about with evolution and cryptids and stuff like that, because it's a thought without much behind it. But it was an interesting point which my friend disagrees with as it ever being a possibility. But since I do see evolution as not just I see it as a continual process that just, if it were to exist, it would just keep going and going and going. But the problem would be, where does it end? Where does it begin? What exactly is normal? What all would ever be considered to be like the beginning of the human race and that sort of thing? And if so, where exactly is the evidence that shows all the changes that have occurred between now and whenever evolution first started? Like, from what I'm seeing, there's a severe lack of evidence between for evolution, and I don't see how that could ever actually exist without there being a creator present. Because being able to create life and snapping your fingers, willing whatever you want into existence, is something that could fit the Big Bang Theory and all that. I mean, the two are separate and they're not the same thing, I know that. But evolution is not just simply change or mutations. Like, from what I understand, mutations are something that they occur within the individual. This is not something that is like, that happens with every single person. I mean, cancer is definitely a part of all this, some way or shape or form. Where cancer, it has a profound impact on our bodies and what happens as far as a response. Radiation therapy, and of course you got the people living next to the nuclear reactor over in Chernobyl, where in '86, and you've got people whose DNA is permanently altered and mutated so that they can't really have kids anymore successfully. And the kids that were born were shown to have some serious health issues and defects. So you got a lot of changes that could happen, sure, but that's not exactly proof for evolution existing. And the whole thing with the cryptids, actually, I'll look up the verses. I'll go into the other thing later. Let me see what I can find here, though. But cryptids themselves, it's a category of like the paranormal, possibly the metaphysical, the spiritual. There's a lot of things that encompass it, where people are like, it's strictly animals. Then you have Indians, you've got others who believe that there are spirits involved in all this. The Bible mentions unclean spirits as far as Legion with the pigs, where Legion begged Jesus to, not send them back to hell, but send those into the pigs instead, where Jesus said, yes, that's fine. And the whole swarm was taken over by these unclean spirits. There's definitely a lot of speculation on all of that too, but playing a part as far as possessing others and all of that could play a change in or with evolution, so to speak. Other than that, outside of the government screwing around, outside of sin, I don't see there being a profound impact in today's world with evolution mattering. I'll read some excerpts and some parts from our conversation here, because this was pretty good. This was very good. Going all the way back to like midnight-ish. Midnight? 1 o'clock in the morning? Oh, man. Let me see here. Going all the way back here. Yep. Okay. 2 o'clock. Yeah, we just had a 2+ hour conversation. It just kept going and going and going. Okay, let me see here. Well-being. Yep. Too many people are not focusing on their health and well-being. That leads down to a different issue with this one kid saying how he wish he could love himself. That honestly takes hard work. It takes a little bit of sacrifice, because anything that you want or anything that is best for you, there's going to be a cost. And that's room for another video, but in short, I've wanted the best. Therefore, I tried to choose and to go after what I believe to be the best, what I believe the best was. And everyone else can do that too. Whatever they deem to be, the best for them. Let me see here. All right, so we started around 2:20, I think. 2:20, 2:16. How does that reconcile with Christianity? Oh yeah, he was talking about this other guy was talking about Gaia existing, but believing that she was more of a spirit than a goddess and more of a soul of the earth. And I had some thoughts on that too. So basically, starting from here, when it comes down to Gaia, Mother Earth, this is what I put here. So from what I know and understand, only humans have souls. Animals don't have that. Spiritual beings are unknown as far as this area with animals and having souls and all that. They could literally be souls without a physical body. And this is as far as spiritual entities like angels and demons and like that. Like, do they actually have souls and all that? Who knows? It's not really mentioned. It's only speculated. It's also a good reason as far as souls only existing in the physical world, in the way that is indicated by the Bible. Souls are something to be redeemed and saved, which could be tied to sin in another way, shape, or form, because of Jesus coming down and dying for our sins and redeeming us. But what part of us would he be redeeming? All of us, a part of us, our souls, the parts that are eternal, because the physical body itself is not something that lasts forever. Yep. So anyway, what I was saying is, if there was a supernatural entity living in the earth, we would need proof or something to show that there was a quote-unquote Mother Earth. I think that there are designs, I think there are processes, I think there's like a natural order, but that doesn't necessarily indicate that there is a massive metaphysical / spiritual being inside of the earth itself. And now in the Bible it says that Satan hovers over the face of the earth. So there are some thoughts there, but I do not believe anything that is natural is something that's going to be tied to something demonic. That kind of delves into witchcraft and sorcery. That delves into other parts that I'm not familiar with, that I'm not sure about. A lot of this is speculation, though, but I am getting off topic here. But I am starting at the beginning, too. Always wonder where pets go when they die. Getting into where is this starting at? Probably, yeah, okay. I know you're messing around when you say probably the Underdark. This is not Baldur's Gate 3. Now, don't get me wrong, it's some of these things that these people put are funny. I have a Christian friend who believes that certain things are going to happen regardless of what anyone says or does, because of what he believes the Bible is saying. That is up to him and his prerogative, because his translation, all that is what he uses, whatever that one is. He hasn't said. I use the AMP version of the Bible, which is amplified, and it is very in depth and it hits hard in some ways that I really appreciate. It's not just simply right smack in the open. There's not a loss of translation or consistency and accuracy. So in other words, I think it would be like somewhere between NLT and NIV version, the old NIV, before they started removing and changing things. It was simple, it's easy to understand, but it had some words that allow you to go deeper into the scripture, deeper into the meaning, all of that. Okay. So he's talking about, one of my friends was talking about animals and pets going to heaven and all that. And he said, would all humans go to heaven, even the ones from the 50K or 3,000K years ago that might be considered to be cavemen? I know that gets away from creationism, but maybe that's a very loaded question. The thing is, we don't know the interaction between pets and evil and good and all of that. There's a couple places in the Bible that talk about such. Again, the pigs being possessed by the demons, they were clearly influenced. Then you've got Balaam's donkey, which he clearly saw the angel and his mouth was open, so he could speak out to Balaam, like, why are you hitting me? I'm trying to, like, keep you away from this angel that's right there, sword in hand, that's going to kill you. You've got the whale from Jonah that was more likely it was placed in a certain area where Jonah happened to be swallowed up inside. And this thing would be massive to be swallowed in the first place. This isn't something tiny. And on top of that, people speculate as far as how that could be even possible because of the filter that these whales usually have to separate the water from like the shrimp and the fish and stuff like that. So they really wonder as far as how this could have happened. And this thing was probably massive, huge. The snake that jumped out of the fire that bit I want to say Paul's hand. The snake that, this is indirectly related, but the snake that was modeled back during Moses' time where a whole bunch of people were sick, and God basically instructed Moses to make a snake on a bronze staff and raise it high, and anyone who would look at this would be cured. So you've got that. That's indirect because it's not a real animal and there's no like real interactions there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No, there's nothing else off the top of my head. That's all I can think of there. But basically, it is believed that everything here in this world and possibly universe has been affected by sin in some way, shape, or form. Therefore, there's a lot that could have changed because of that. This ties in with evolution as far as like things changing, never like staying constant. Things always going, progressing, not necessarily maturing, not necessarily improving, or even just simply aging. Well, evolution indicates that there is a change taking place, that it is constant. I don't like that necessarily because I'm thinking that, you know, like, where does it stop? Where does it just keep going on and on and on? And the fact that some people are like, this change is so subtle, it happens over 1 million, billion, trillion years or whatever. And I'm like, is it even happening at all if it's going to happen that slow? Like, there would be evidence as far as that going. And a lot of the skeletons that were found, that people were like, this proves evolution exists, where they're like, that's wrong, that's incorrect, that's a fake, that's a fraud. If you're going to go back to like caveman times, maybe somewhere along the way there was like a change, but that could be attributed to a couple different factors, like their diet was extremely poor, they were deficient in vitamins, they were deficient in fiber, whatever. They could be having some sort of disease or whatever, and they just happen to find this particular set of the bones and skeleton and all like there's definitely some arguments there as far as that goes. Let me see here. And yeah, for the record, I believe my friend as the main friend who does do a lot of spouting of scripture in the Bible, and he shares a lot of good things. I agree with him on this, that God made pets and that they're going to be in heaven when they die and pass away and all that. Not because they don't have a soul, but because they had a purpose, and that most of life was deemed to be good back at the beginning of creation before sin was involved. And even though the purpose, let me back up. I do not believe the purpose changes when sin was introduced into the picture. I believe, as a whole, animals are not like humans in the sense where they have free will and choice and they can do whatever they want. They have instincts. They've got certain things where they go after them in a particular way. And this is throughout the entire species. Like, they are a certain way and that doesn't change. The only thing that would be changing would be like the looks, the like you can have like multiple different colored kittens from in the same litter. Orange, black, white, grayish, like, so you can get different variations, but that's not like genetic mutation or whatever. That's a genetic deviance, variation, whatever the word is for it. But it's not something that would tie into evolution. Evolution is a significant change in like entire populations, not just like in individuals. Moving on. Now, evolution, I think, is purely 100% physical. I do not believe evolution is something that applies to the metaphysical or to what is spiritual. I do not believe like angels, demons change in the sense that like they're one thing 100 million billion years ago and they're something completely different. If there's anything that would change, it would be their purpose, their function, who they would be going after. Because Catholics believe that everyone can and has a personal guardian angel, which is something that I'm leaning towards more of believing in, that it is accurate with what they're saying. Like, this is fact, and I'm leaning to that being true and factual. There is nothing to disprove that either. All right. So, God made them. Dogmen of abominations, unclean spirits. I think we started here 228. So right around 230, I think is when we started with this. Because I started talking about angels and the fact that I think the government was fucking around. And if it wasn't the government, it would be unclean spirits and people making pacts with other spirits and stuff like that for, skinwalkers or whatever. Since there's only eyewitness accounts and stories of skinwalkers and such, it is very hard to take that seriously for many people out there. If you don't see stuff, you don't hear stuff, you don't feel stuff. Basically, if none of this is personal in any way, shape, or form, it is hard to take seriously. I know. It's basically like, dude, I could live till I'm 80 and then die. And then the next thing you know, you're getting into a car accident and you're like almost traumatized because you're like, dude, I could have died. Yeah. Like, this became real to you because it happened to you. And for these other people, they're like, this shit is real because it happened to me. And they're like, you don't have to believe me, but this is my story. I believe it. And now for others, fire in the sky with the alien abduction. You've got people who are saying like, hold up, this was made for the purpose of entertainment. This is not exactly what happened. And this does not line up with the story at all. And people are like, all right, fine. Many people believe that the movie version is purely for entertainment and is basically fake, or an elaboration of whatever was real and true and whatever happened. I think there's a lot to go on there, and I don't believe this stuff just popped out of nowhere, and if it did, it's likely because people wanted to make money, or more likely, drugs were involved in some way, shape, or form. Not medicine. I mean, like stuff that happened, that they ingested, that affected them. Drugs were very popular and still are popular here in the US. I do not know about other countries, but like the 80s, and then again the early 2000s, you've got like a resurgence in like a whole bunch of different drugs and stuff that have significantly impacted our society and culture. Weed is basically being 100% legalized as we speak. I don't know how many states have left to. I don't know. I don't know about that, but I do know that weed is being slowly legalized. It has been over the past decade. Since I don't care, I haven't paid attention to that, so I can't really say much more beyond that. Other people in the group here, they don't believe that evolution has happened. I kind of don't, I'm quoting someone else, I kind of don't really believe in evolution anymore, and for the longest time secretly believed that the world is only 10,000 years old, and now I'm starting to believe more in the idea of the firmament, and that there's nothing above beyond that, and that those stars are angelic beings looking down. There's a cool side topic, but there's a cool anime as far as like Sadamitsu, I think, and the whole theme is there's aliens that came to Earth, and whenever they defeat a bad guy or a villain, they ensnare them up, and they're basically reborn as snared up. They fly up, and they're in the sky as a star. So that is their basically, that's how they can be redeemed, is by shining light and being bright and beautiful, helping others in this current lifetime to help redeem them for being so evil and wicked, or something along the lines of that. It's very cool, but it's an old school anime. Sadamitsu is not bad. Old anime. Let me see here. Okay. So evolution did pop up around 2:28 in the morning. This morning. It's just really hard to figure out where the beginning was in all of this. There's some good stuff here for sure. Now, my friend here, who I disagree with about evolution, popped on the scene around 2:29, started talking about this stuff, about how it's real. I don't care much about it as far as it overall. I know where I stand with it, and if people want to say it's real and they want to present what they believe to be evidence, I'm happy to listen to that. I just don't see how it could be real. Now, even if it was real, the questions that I asked are still valid. Like, why are things not changing? And why are things looking like they're perpetually staying the same throughout many years? And on top of that, like when it comes down to certain things, like why are the same characteristics displayed over and over and over again? You know, like mankind's reproduction hasn't changed at all. Men still get horny over women. You know, you still got like sex selling and being a major hit as far as anything to do with like, let's go sell something, get women involved. Something that looks cute, that's going to attract men. Oh jeez. Now often you could do it the other way too, attract women, which will then in turn attract men. So you've got like pets, kids, because you know what they say about YouTube. YouTube started off with like cat videos and stuff like that. And as a result, a lot of women were drawn to the platform, which then in turn drew a lot of men. And then you've got people who are intellectuals, philosophers, that are popping on the scene. And you got news taking over and doing their own shit. Yeah, funny. Okay. Here's the thing. I disagree with my Christian friend here who says God's word destroys evolution. I'm just like, hold up. You talk about the Big Bang, you talk about certain things here. Like, scripturally speaking, it could be supported, because there is nothing that says God cannot just be like, I will this into existence. And theoretically, that could have happened with creation. I say theoretically because it does kind of fit certain parts. But overall, I don't think so, because I think God wanted to take time in building and creating. And I think the 6 days of work and the 7th day of rest, I think that was more of like a metaphor. It could have been 6 years of work and then a 7th year of rest or something like that. God is not man where he tires out from physical work. God does not, he is not limited to a physical body. Anyway, that's going down a different path there, but like, there's ways to prove certain things. Like, the earth is round, the outer space is not full of water, and that, you know, the earth is not the center of the universe or whatever. So there's certain things you can prove. With evolution, there's like a lack of history, a lack of evidence, and there's a general lack as far as certain things go. I started pointing out how, like, certain things are also something that are noticeably absent and different. One of them is, if things are in motion, they stay in motion. If change is happening, change, you know, according to evolution, change will have always been happening. And that evolution itself would have been built into the earth, the foundation of the earth itself. But how could that be possible? Because how could you have something, or an entire civilization, or even life itself, how could you have something built upon the premise of constant change? What would be built on? What would the foundation be? Like, evolution goes against foundations as a whole, like, because there's no place to start from. And if there was a place to start from, we would have lost it a long time ago. And as things go, they would get more complicated. They would change. There are so many different parts of this that would just change. I told others, like, I really think this, like, is akin to chaos theory. Like, you start off somewhere great, and then it ends up going crazy, going bonkers, and just shit going everywhere, going haywire. Because as a whole, evolution doesn't, if it were to exist and constantly keep changing, it would eventually be going up against boundaries, going up against what would be natural, and it would be breaking free from all that. Chaos theory, in the sense where things go nuts, basically says that there are no boundaries, there are no limitations, and that there's a lot that just goes everywhere. Or, on the opposite side, there's a lot that just simply does not go to a consigned path. It doesn't go down one particular route. And that's what evolution is like. It doesn't go one particular way. It just grows and goes wherever. Like, if there's too much change. See here. So yeah, my friend, I mean, I am serious. I do not believe evolution. I do not believe evolution is how things are in today's world. There is change. There is maturity. There is mutations. There is the destruction of cells, like akin to irradiation, that sort of thing. Like, you've got things that happen, you've got consequences, you've got results. But, like, evolution itself, now there's another factor too that I brought up. Good and evil have no place. Morality has no place within evolution. And I'm just like, look at all the videos of these kids who want to make friends, and they just get killed by their so-called friends. Horrific shit. It's awful. Some stories of girls being killed by other ones, and then you've got stories of boys being killed by other boys. Like, this isn't consigned to just boys or girls. you've got people who want to make friends. The next thing you know, you get a horror story in the making because, hey, these kids, they were so angry over something, or they were just cruel and mean. They wanted to see the other person suffer. I watched 6 minutes of this video of this kid, and I tried looking for it. I couldn't find it. Who basically wanted to make some friends. He brought him over to his home, and he gets knocked out with like his father's handgun or whatever that this kid found. And he woke up being tied and bound with this same guy who stole the gun, smashing his feet in with something like a bat or something, or was it just stepping on it and crushing with his heels? And like, I could only go 6 minutes into it because I was just like, I can't take this shit. This kid ended up dying. He was murdered and there was they were going into a description of torture, but I don't remember everything that was said. Acid, he was forced to drink acid or poison. He had chunks of flesh cut out. He had parts of his muscles cut, like his foot, the tendon in his heel was cut so he couldn't run. Awful, disturbing garbage. So like, the point, before I just keep going on forgetting about it, is basically there's evil in this world. Evolution doesn't take that into account. It doesn't take into account like people wanting to do shit to each other. I hate you, I'm going to kill you. And like, it just doesn't take into account good and evil. People can be viciously cruel. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's the opposite. People can be extremely kind-hearted and very much caring, loving, that sort of thing. You've got parents and you've got psychopaths. Occasionally the two cross, and you've got a combination of both. Yeah, but that's not evolution. That is like trauma, bad choices, things going sideways, and people are like, I don't care anymore, and the next thing you know, they become a whole entirely different person. Then of course you've got people who are born with defects, people who are born with less of the emotional capacity because their physical brain is actually missing parts that most others have, because, you know, empathy, care, emotions, love in the frontal part of the brain, like the frontal cortex. I think that's what it's called. I'm not an expert in this stuff, but like emotions and feelings, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about right and wrong. Everyone is built in with a distinction of knowing what is right and what is wrong. That's why you have a whole bunch of kids doing things, giggling because they're trying to get away with it, and then they get caught and they're like, I'm sorry, or they just try to blame someone else, like the dog did it, my brother did it. So you've got funny kids and you've got kids who are like trying to look, evil exists. And even if you don't want to believe that evil does exist, the entire point I was making is that evolution doesn't take into account at all. And I would say, well, here's the thing. Are you going to just say everyone who's bad? Never mind, I'm not going down that route. But I think the entire population is affected by sin specifically. And there's no way evolution can respond to anything morality, anything that is right or wrong at all. Like, there's no morality at all. There's the system is completely absent and devoid, like missing, separated, not there. Moving on. It's already 30 minutes long. I didn't realize 34 minutes long, and I'm not trying to drag this out on and on. Okay, this is my friend who believes in, who is atheist, I believe. I don't want to get this wrong, but she's not a Christian. All right, let's see here. If something is a theory, it is because it has been tested a ton and has been shown to be accurate time and time again. The colloquial use of theory should not be conflated with a scientific one, which is accurate. You know, you shouldn't confuse the two. Now, I do want to say this, though. when it comes down to evolution, it's never been proven to be true and to exist or have ever existed because there is a distinct lack of evidence, plain and simple. And on top of that, that's what makes it, or rather keeps it to be a theory, is the lack of evidence. Oh, jeez. By the way, when it comes down to it, I don't exactly like, people like, are you a creationist? I don't really care to give an answer because I feel like, or rather it seems like people are just going to lump me into a category and ignore what I say if I am not lumped into the appropriate category. And that's how I view, when it comes to topics of faith and belief. And it's just let's kind of ignore that because you're not going to listen. Or rather, you are likely to not listen if I were to give you a yes or no answer. Evolution from nothing is not a scientific concept. It's a straw man. Jeez. Keep going. 238. Wow. We have gone through so much text, it's not even funny. This is my friend who believes in evolution. It is a hypothesis that already has an abundance of backing. A theory is effectively a fact, for example, the atomic theory. And the germ theory of disease. Those aren't just wild guesses, they're effectively facts. Theories are not the same as facts, plain and simple. They can include facts. They can have a lot to do with facts, but that does not mean they are facts, that, everything is equal. I can prove evolution to anyone provided they actually engage with me earnestly and honestly. And I'm just like, I totally support you on that. I really do. Hey, yeah, that's something else too. With the way people monetize and all that, everything becomes about money. Who cares about morality? Who cares about change? Who cares about any of that? The only thing that matters is getting more money, getting richer. You've got a lot of factors that come into play where it's just yeah, we don't care, bye. And evolution is just one of those things that just kind of gets pushed off to the side in the way of the grander scheme of things. Who cares about that? It doesn't directly affect your life. Maybe there's no connection there, but yeah. I started getting bored with this, and I was eventually actually, sorry. I am way off. That was an hour down. So this is the part where I something clicked, and I was like, hold on. Okay, let me read this part. However, it's up to others to determine if they're going to believe all of these personal encounters and stories on them or not, as there's virtually no public evidence to display saying, hey, they exist. And this was in response to when I said that dogmen and cryptids are not wild speculation or even guesses, that they are factual, because there's more and more personal accounting saying, this happened to me, I saw this, and all of that. And people do not come out and say this stuff because they're trying to make $1 or $2. That is a handful of people. The rest is, this is weird, strange stuff happening, and this is what we know, this is what we've seen. I mean, you've got bizarre murder cases of all kinds. It's not taking the weird and paranormal, putting it all together, and then just being weird stuff, cryptids. Of course, they're trying to this is, there are beings, there's entities, a whole bunch of strange things, all put into one category. And of course, there's one particular murder video in my mind that was basically, it's still unsolved to this day, about how the entire family was killed and all that. There's definitely quite a few of those out there where it's just like, what the hell happened? These murders are very weird, very random, and they're not normal. Anyway, this is the part where I started talking about, like, you know, trying to compare the fact of, like, evolution and dogma and cryptids. Like, you've got evolution, which is not proven, then you have, like, cryptids, dogmans. You've got the strange stuff in the wilderness and all that proven to actually exist. There are videos out there that are speculation worthy, some. Then you've got others where you're like, that's clearly not human. Too big to be a human. Too fast to be human. Of course, if you're not following these channels, you're likely to miss a lot of these videos that are put up. There's, I'll probably do a shout out to a channel when I put this video up here, just because this guy is dedicated to the paranormal, excuse me. So there's some good stuff there. But it is up to you if you're going to believe these personal accounts and stories and all that. You don't have to, but that is what makes it very interesting, is the fact that the possibility of this could actually existing. Evolution, there's no... People don't want to go... They don't want to say, like, there's a possibility. They want to be like, this exists or this does not exist. Many are just simply... They walk away at the point where they're like, we don't care anymore, or we're set, we know where we stand on this. Boom. Anyway, 246. That's the thing, though, is a lot of this stuff ends up being like, there's either a lack of evidence, or there is a lack of evidence on both sides when it comes down to cryptids and evolution. But of the two, there's a lot more personal eyewitness accounts between, you know, cryptids existing. People have been encountering some very strange and bizarre things. Now, I will say this. This is not something that I can confirm that has ever happened to me. This happened to a friend of mine, a former friend. I do not know if he's still alive. In 2003, when I was at New Hope Academy or rather outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, which is shut down, Brother Vince Fields, I don't remember if Fields is his actual last name or if he took it after his wife or whatever, but anyway, Brother Vince Fields, that's what we called him, Brother Vince. And he told us a time where he distinctly recalled seeing on a lamppost, on a stop sign, I think it was a lamppost, where he saw one of the things talked about in Revelation about the locust with, like, that was described about having a head of like a humanoid type of head and the very unusual body. But he just like waved it off and didn't care. But he remembered later on, he's like, wow, this is really unusual. So he remembers seeing this creature from Revelation that was described in Revelation, as far as, I mean, I believe him. I believe he saw that, what he was describing, accurately. And since it's been forever since I read Revelation with the locust, let me pull that up here. I need to look into this because I want to give some very good information as far as that exists. Revelation, let's pull this up real quick. It's 44 minutes, so yeah, apologies. I'm not trying to have too long, but I got to get through this stuff. This is too good to pass up. Actually, let me go down to Bible, John, Revelation, chapter 1. All right, locust. Okay, let's see what we got. Revelation 9. Chapter 9, verse 1. Then the fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star, quote-unquote, angelic being that had fallen from the heaven to the earth, and the key to the bottomless pit, parentheses, abyss, was given to him, the star angel, parentheses. He opened the bottomless pit, and smoke like the smoke of a great furnace flowed out of the pit, and the sun and the atmosphere were darkened by the smoke from the pit. Then out of the smoke came locusts upon the earth, and power to hurt was given to them, like the power which the earth's scorpions have. All right, let's go to the description here. Okay, they can only hurt people who do not have the seal, the mark of ownership, protection of God on their foreheads. They were not permitted to kill anyone, but to torment and cause them extreme pain for 5 months. All right. The locusts resembled horses prepared and equipped for battle, and on their heads appeared to be something like golden crowns, and their faces resembled human faces. They had hair like the hair of women, and their teeth were like the teeth of lions. They had breastplate/scales, like breastplates made of iron, and the whirring noise of their wings were like the thunderous noise of countless horse-drawn chariots charging at full speed into battle. They have tails like scorpions and stingers, and in their tails is their power to hurt people for 5 months. They have as king over them the angel of the abyss, the bottomless pit. In Hebrew, his name is Abaddon, destruction. And in Greek, he is called Apollyon, the destroyer king. So that's the thing. His description was a little bit different. He didn't go word for word on what it says here in Revelation 9, as far as like, this is the biblical description of these locusts. And besides that, I'm going off of something from 2003, so we're talking about like 21 years ago, give or take. 21 years ago. I remember the time, I more or less remember it happening, but the details are fuzzy. I still remember that he said that, though. Anyway, so, point in case, I believe it happened to him. I believe he saw it, but it didn't happen to me personally. Eyewitness accounts do account for something. Now, if you can determine why people are, coming forward saying this is my witness, like this is my testimony, this is what happened, this is what I've been through, be like, well, is there evidence? Did anything happen? Were there any claw marks? Did anyone get killed? Like, you start asking certain questions, trying to get down to the bottom of it, there will be, depending upon the story and the situation, there's going to be evidence. But for others, it's basically, this is what I saw, this is what happened, and there's nothing left there, because it's not that kind. It's like we saw it and then it flew away, or it moved away, or we ended up just seeing it for a split second before we kept going down the same path. Seeing the pictures that people are saying, like, this is of the Mothman, these are some of the dog men out there, and then seeing like videos of people being chased, I'm just like, okay, that's not human. And if it is human, this is like really messed up. There's a lot of things that are messed up. But anyway, the not getting too far off track, like, scripturally speaking, there's a lot of strange things out there we know that exist. You've got messed up people. You've got people who are like, we want to see the world burn. We want to take what you have. Or, yeah, see the world burn. We want to take what you have. We want to hurt you. And then you've got those who are like, mind games. Fuck around, find out. That sort of thing. You've got a whole wide variety in the bad category, and I'm just like, evolution doesn't take that into account. It doesn't take failure. Okay, so there are failures that are deemed like, well, if it's a failure, it's not gonna, it's not gonna live on, it's gonna die out or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, sure. But here's the thing: mismanagement, not protecting certain species, that also plays a role of why some things are going extinct, because you've got hunters. hunters that are trying to shoot animals because of their horns. They're trying to hunt certain fish into extinction. You've got a couple of different things for sure, as far as like, if we don't do something, the likelihood that the species is going to go extinct because of these poachers and hunters is a very high probability. So like, you've got certain countries that are like, we see you see poachers, you are authorized to kill them on spot. Oh man. So yeah, species dying out. It's not necessarily because they're the weakest link. It's because they're being poached into non-existence. Going back. Don't forget the classic Bigfoot stories. That's from someone else who randomly popping up. And I was like, yeah, well, that's true. And basically, when it comes down to it, there is a lot when it comes down to like, and even Indians themselves have popped up talking about certain things like skinwalkers. Like, you hear this, like, pray and leave. Leave the area, stay away. You hear your name being called. Don't follow, don't look, run away. I mean, I'm telling you, like, certain things evolution just ignores and leaves out. Plain and simple as that. Man, it just gets crazy at times. Ugh, gross. All right, moving on here. I'm trying to wrap this up. It is after 50 minutes. So my friend says there's a stunning amount of evidence for evolution, but until something pops up, I can't really talk much about it. So, yeah. And what makes it harder to talk about evolution with my friend is there's just nothing there that is being presented as like, this is what makes evolution be like, this is proof for evolution existing. I want to say that there's a video that I saw as far as depicting a story of some strange happenings over in Ukraine during the conflict with Russia, and I pointed that out. I don't know if I could find it or not. I could try looking for it, but you could also probably find it yourself too. I think it's the one where the squad ended up fighting something unknown and getting decimated, with like everyone killed and claw marks left on the vehicles and stuff, and that the firefight itself lasted only for like a couple of minutes. I think there was like one survivor, but I don't remember the story. This was like over a year ago that I ended up listening to it. It was cool. I just kind of put it off and moved on. I first heard about Dogman like a year ago, give or take, and started watching some of this stuff. Oh man. I think that there's a creator simply because there's a lot of designs at place, and there, a lot of animals happen to have built-in, instincts, that animals have instincts, and that there's a lot that's built into them, like pre-programmed, so to speak. Now, if that pre-programming is disrupted in some way, shape, or form, whether the parent dies or something happens, the baby falls out and gets rescued by a human, that's going to get disrupted. Because you've got reports, and there are videos, thousands, millions of videos of like animals raising other animals, and then the next thing you know, you have like this duck or this dog, this cat. It acts like it's a different species. Cats acting like dogs, dogs acting like cats, that sort of thing. There is nature versus nurture too, which kind of falls into like whether or not evolution matters in that regards, or has an impact at all. When changes happen, where do they come from? Oh boy. This would first require us to both be on board with what evolution actually is. Yeah, there's board definitions, sure, of course. Let's take that into account. I'm thinking that it is possible that evolution could take place when unclean spirits and demons, sources with other powers are involved. Because as we know, demons and all that, when you make deals with such, things change, you change. The power itself could theoretically be the same and never having changed over all these years. But who knows? The source matters. But being human, I'm pretty sure we're going to be very susceptible to power of any kind, and coming from an unclean, a demonic source is going to have a huge impact on us for sure. Just like having power from God, where people are like, they're monks, they're priests, they're pastors, they're highly respected men in their community they've gone above and beyond the call of duty. They've sacrificed so much for their town, their city, and you could list off what they've done easily. You've got people on both sides as far as like, look at the power that they have, that they were given, the blessing, or whatever. You've got people who can show, who they are and what they've done. You've got that for sure. But getting back to the point, I think evolution could be possible if certain criteria were, if there was certain criteria involved, certain prerequisites, so to speak. No, I do not think the government can jumpstart any of this stuff. I think they can try to mess with a couple of species, cloning or whatever, and I think they can try, but I think I just don't think that's going to be happening. I think that's a waste of time and money and all of that. And if so, there's going to be very specific points. Like, we're going to try to go after cloning. We're going to try after biological stuff, specifically to make money off of it, to make weapons, that sort of thing. Just basically spending billions and trillions of dollars on science wouldn't be tied to the government. More likely than not, it's going to be tied to other, like the scientific communities and such, which would be going into a completely different direction altogether. This is by my friend who I've been having this conversation with, as far as who's atheist, who believes in evolution. Evolution is ultimately a theory of biodiversity, an explanation of why there are different species in general, and it occurs through mutation and selection. And I'm like, what? Oh, sorry. She was like, what? To one of my replies. And I was like, well, if it ever did happen and kept on going, it would no longer be evolution. I was a little off there, and I tried to explain that. Evolution keeps going on and on and on. So there was some miscommunication and me making oops, my bad, my mistake there. Oh boy. Evolution by its very nature is an ongoing process, never stopping. And I was like, look, if evolution kept going on, weird shit that exists today and a lot of what is odd could theoretically be explained, like dogmen and cryptids. But this is explained because the metaphysical isn't believed by everyone in the scientific community. The metaphysical and the spiritual is not recognized by many out there. They're like, that doesn't exist because we can't see it. Okay. Can't see certain things for sure, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. That's like, on some level, people are like, personal accounts do not matter because, they can't be replicated. And that's not something that'll ever happen to us. Try to recreate those same events that have happened, maybe something will happen. Like, there's some very weird disturbances and things happening. People going down not the Appalachian Trail, but like other trails, they disappear, other people disappear. And you've got these 401 missing cases where it's just like, what was that Tacolochian exploration gone wrong? Something over in Russia or whatever. It's like this whole group went to go climbing and weird stuff happening. All but one person died. And the one person ended up just being saved because being instructed by the person who ended up dying was like, go down. And he was trying to get her away, and she ended up following. But everyone else died in some weird positions and stuff like that. Oh, man. Anyway, yeah, 401 missing cases and these explorations going wrong. Like the weird, disturbing incidents. Evolution doesn't take that stuff into account. It can provide an explanation for why some of the stuff exists, sure, but like overall, anomalies are not taken into account by evolution. In fact, I would go as far as to say the paranormal and anomalies can never be explained by evolution as a whole. Theoretically, it can be, in the sense of like it's always changing, things are always happening. And the next thing you know, you've got some weird ass split. You've got something that has changed so much. Anomalies start popping up. Maybe I'm throwing stuff out here because some of this stuff does not make any sense at all. Like, evolution could explain for some things happening, sure. But ultimately, I just don't think so. Oh, man. Evolution, this is by my friend who believes in evolution. Evolution has a law in it where a thing cannot become a fundamentally different thing. I need it. Okay. Like, my brain is basically dying from a lot of this stuff. I really do. This whole thing just kind of, it went on to the point where I was like, I gotta step back. I just cannot be a part of this. Like, I'm sorry. I'm done. I have to walk away. Overall, we need more evidence. We need more to support that evolution actually exists. And I'm just like, I'm not convinced. When it comes down to it, sure, love it or hate it, the Bible has some very good points as far as where everything came from. It was created. And they're like, let's go into this. And people want to disagree with that. And I'm like, that's fine. That's your prerogative. That's your personal choice to believe in something else other than what the Bible says. I think it's smart and wise to look into the foundation for what is composed of, quote unquote, the Bible, the history, the archaeology, like the evidence behind all of this. Archaeology. Well, said that word wrong. All of this stuff comes into play to say, look at our past, look at our history. This is what we know exists. This is what we know happens. And there are certain things that are going to be, people are doing their damnedest to hide. Like, they're going to be hiding studies for certain things. The effects of, what do they call those things? The effects of birth control. What exactly does that do to women? You've got studies as far as what issues are tied with older women giving birth to kids, like in their 40s or 50s or 60s, and there is some particular issue and disease or whatever. I'm trying to remember. And you've got stuff like that is buried. So kids that are coming out with Down syndrome, there we go. Down syndrome, like, if there's any links between Down syndrome and older women, and I've heard that there is, but I haven't been able to find anything. So I'm under the impression that if there was anything there, it's been hidden. And that's a big fat if. Other than that, it's basically, it's a lie that's being pushed forward. But the horrifying fact is, what if it actually exists and it is being hidden? you've got certain things like that are circulating around on the internet, as far as in some of the men's group, like this is some of what's going on. This is a problem in today's society. And as far as what the birth control is, one of the things that goes behind it that is interesting is one of the reasons why it's thought to be pushed to women is because it makes them more susceptible, more malleable. Like, it's easier to convince them of certain things. And there's other women who've chimed in as far as like with their own their thoughts as far as birth control itself, with some saying like it messed with my body and I did not like it. It really caused imbalance. It caused a whole bunch of other issues and stuff, and things went back to normal when I was actually taking, when I stopped taking birth control. You've got a whole bunch of stuff as far as that's concerned. But as far as with the studies for Down syndrome being linked to older women, again, you got things that are just buried. Like, trying to find anything on this stuff is just like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Evolution itself is going to have certain things be pushed forward and presented as if it's the truth. Then you've got other things that are being downplayed that are completely detrimental to that. Obviously, it is probably wise to have alternatives to creation, if nothing more than just to discuss and question, to analyze, to look into things. Because having something and only one thing be, like this is fact, this is the only thing that has happened, it cuts off a lot of interest, it cuts off a lot of questions. It's basically, what's a good analogy for this? When you're trying to ask your grandfather about like women and how you got married and stuff like that, you're going to get a radically different answer than, no, that's bad. That's a bad example. That's not even relevant at all. Dang it, I can't think of anything good here. All right, I'm going to end it here. This has just gone over an hour long. It's just, wow. Thank you for listening. I hope this was interesting, entertaining, thought-provoking, all of that stuff. There are some very weird things out there that can be explained. The problem is not necessarily them existing, it's how that they're explained and what all has been covered up. The truth, the facts. The facts will hit you hard. They will hit anyone hard. That's why sometimes they're buried, why they can never see the light of day, because they're just going to break the narrative. The truth will set you free. And as I say, the truth will break you indiscriminately. Doesn't matter on what side you're at. If you're on the wrong side, the truth will break you. You shouldn't be afraid of it. But you can understand it, why the truth will not always be embraced. It's because some people, it does too much damage and it will undo what they are working towards. Until next time.